Hello model railroaders, it's Dave, welcome back to the layout. Well, I've been getting some success in getting the track adhered down to the risers, but I'm getting slightly sidetracked ahead of my plan because it's just been bugging me and I want to get this dealt with and over with. Now, I had mentioned in a previous video that I want to get the lighting over this section done, and having dealt with the overshadowing between the light over there and the light here with this bulkhead, it's gotten to the point, along with having the channel on the floor at the legs, because that's the only place where I can really stick the 10-foot section out of the way, and with moving the stand back and forth and making sure I'm not crushing it, I've just gotten to the point where I want to get this done and get the light up so I can see what I'm doing and light the section up so that as I progress forward I know where the light's going to be highlighting on the layout and can make some plans as to what may go where. So just to give you a quick overview, so I've gotten, as per a previous video, we've got the track all done there, and coming down the riser I've gotten it to the point of here. So overall things worked out well. Just had to try not get ahead of myself as far as the different weights to keep things down, because as you can see with dealing with this urethane, I'm going to see if I can get it. You can see here on my joiner how it's kind of free floating a little bit, because the foam, I didn't have a weight right on the edge. It was up farther here, and when the urethane expanded a little bit it did push it up, or I've got a little bit of a dip there, either or, but I'm not too worried about that little bit of track being spongy. I can always slip a shim in and glue that down. Again, this is the section of track that is removable, but it's something to be aware of if you're using the construction adhesive. The caulk, of course, won't expand, so as long as it's seated appropriately, it won't be a problem. And at a later point, when I run out of the construction adhesive, I'll probably give the latex caulking a try. But where we're at is with the J channel. As you can see, I've got the LED strips fit perfectly inside that J channel. Now nothing is adhered, but that ends up being 20 feet of LED lighting. And then those are the two ends. So what I've done is I've butt jointed the J channel up to each other, and then used a piece of deck bracketing and drilled some more holes in, because it was very hard to find a long enough bracket that is around 1 inch thick where I could get the holes where it wouldn't interfere with the too far down, interfering with the LED strip of getting it in and out. So that's the solution I came up with. 6 inches on either side should be enough to support the joint and prevent it from twisting. And this particular section is going to be mounted. I've got a hole drilled through there and another hole, I think 62 inches down here, And that coincides with that little mark there on the bulkhead and that mark there on the bulkhead. Now the edge, as you can see, that's right at 8 inches. So that will put, not wanting to focus on the white, that will put me right over, sorry, gotta get you a proper reference, right over in about this area right here, where the light will be shining. So the light will predominantly be in the hole here, but highlighting this section. And if things need to be moved, well, then I'll pull it forward so that it's running more at this, because this backer is the seam block is at 1 foot in from the edge of the layout. So I'm figuring 8 inches should be enough with the light diffusing out from being that high. And then the other sections down here, I'm just going to run wire up to a either a hook or a bolt in the ceiling. And so from the edge there, it'll come down, and where the butt joint is, I folded back a bit of the metal so that the wires can snake through. And then I'm going to use a connector block to join both halves up, because I'm going to power from the center of the strip to try and keep the light consistent through the whole length of the strip. And then the main power will come in to the joiner block and then tee off down there. So I've got the one hole here to support the joint, because that'll be at the heavy with the 16 gauge deck bracket. And then I'm going about halfway down for another hole and 1 inch in from the end, and that will put the end right almost even with the background, the masonite background at the far end. So that's going to be off the wall about 2.5 inches down at that far end, because this is a full 20 feet for this leg of the layout. So that's where I'm at now. I'll add in, once I'm going to get the bolts on. So thinking of that, I'm going to slip a bolt in through the hole. I've got to find my spot. I'm going to slip a bolt in through the hole so that the head is in the J channel, and then I'm going to bend one of the ring connectors through that bolt hole, crimp it onto some wire, and then that'll run up to the ceiling. And I'll just double nut it so that I don't have to worry about trying to reach in there and get this over the bolt shank. I'll already have the bolt nutted, and I'll just put another nut on to pinch that connector, and that should be the easiest. And I'll probably just use some brass wire, or whatever I've got to hand. I gotta dig through my miscellaneous supplies and see what I've got. But that's where we're at. So my next step is soldering all of the LED strips together and ensuring that I've got the positive going to positive and negative going to negative as I get this 20 feet or two 10-foot sections of LED put together. So I'll be back in a moment with a little more progress. And we're back. Now, just so that I've got it in this video, this is a view of the packaging label of the LEDs that I'm using. So they've got a good color, CRI, color rendixing index. I'm not exactly sure what the R stands for, but I know the better the number, the more it is equivalent to sunlight. And 4,000 to 4,500. So if you want to look it up, you're more than welcome to. I can't remember the seller I bought this off of. I bought it a couple years ago, and in preparation for this. Now, what they are 12 volt LEDs, and there's 60 LEDs per meter. Now, so what I've got is a 12 volt power supply, and I'm not sure what the amps are. I'm not using this one specifically to run them, but it's 0.5 amps on the 12 negative, 2.5 amps on the positive. But anyway, I'm just using this to test the LEDs. The one that I previously purchased that is running the LED strip there secured to the bulkhead, that has enough wattage to run the two full what were they? 5-meter strips. So yeah, they're 5-meter strips. So it's got more than enough wattage to run everything that I purchased, because I bought it all at the same time. So this one I'm just using to test it, where I've got it wired up with the on-off switch, just to make sure that my soldering is correct before. I don't want to pull the sticky back down, so checking all my joints, that everything is appropriately lighting up. Now, I don't want to run them too long because they will heat up, though they haven't yet. But that's the whole point of running the J channel, is that it's acting like a heat sink. And with that big side panel, it's giving me some lateral support, as well as a big heat well, so that it can absorb any heat off the LEDs. So that's where I am. I've got one side done, the side that will get attached to the bulkhead, and now on to the next side. Now, before I go ahead and secure the LEDs down to the J channel, I'm just going to take a swab, puff, whatever, facial something or other, cotton whatever, and using the 99% isopropyl alcohol, I'm going to soak this in it and run it up and down the bottom of the J channel, wearing gloves so I don't cut myself, to ensure that there's no oil sitting in the channel, so that I get a good adhesion. So I'm going to do that now, and let the 99% isopropyl alcohol, or IPA, evaporate off, and then I'm going to glue the what I just soldered down, and then start in on soldering the bits of the next side. So back in a moment. Okay, model railroaders, we'll see how well this films, But what I'm going to use is a rosin flux pen, and I'm going to dab it on all 4 contacts. I've got them spaced out an inch. I'm using a steel square, carpentry square, as a heat sink base to solder it. So what I'm going to end up doing is tinning all 4 of the contacts. I've already pre-tinned both the red and the black wire. I've ensured that I've got my negative and negative and positive in the right orientation. So let's go ahead and give this a go and see if I can actually do it without blocking the shot. That's ended up with a little more flux on that one than I had wanted, so I'm just going to dab some of that away. And just give that a backing a push to flatten it out a little bit, and try this again where I just want just a touch. Okay. Oh, a side tip for using the flux pens. If you hold them upside down, sometimes the flux in the tip will dry out, so I always leave mine pointed down. However, if it does end up with the flux, the tip drying out, just put a little bit of 99% IPA in the tip and put the pen back in, leave it sitting with tip down, and that will dissolve the rosin back up and get the capillaries flowing again. So just a tip there. Now I'm using 60-40 rosin core solder. I don't know what the 0.03 diameter. So I usually use a fairly thin diameter. So I usually just put a blob on the tip and then touch it down to the contact to try and transfer it over. And as always, you don't want to be breathing the rosin fumes as it, but they always seem to migrate to your face, don't they? It's odd how that little bit of physics works. Okay, and I'm just gonna get rid of that extra. Now, the part where I don't know, will it video? Now I've got the wire tips down so that they match what's on the exposed contact strip. And what I'm going to do is do both of the one first. And then, oh, pulled it. And then readjust to ensure that these contacts are going to work out on the other side. Let's get that black one in first. Now I'm also using the inside of the edge of the framing square to try and line up the edge of the LED strips so that they will sit properly in the channel. So now that one's done, I can bend this one back a bit. I see by the fuzz on my pliers, I'm going to have to run it through a demagnetizer to get the bits of metal, probably from when I was cutting the, yes, that's what it is, when I was cutting the deck strapping with the bit. I ended up creating lots of little metal fibers all over my mat that are... Now what I'm doing is I'm just bending that wire so that it makes a better angled contact with and that's the extent of it. So that's my little bit of soldering. So we'll see you in a moment when we've got a little more progress. Hey, model railroaders. I just wanted to correct something I did in earlier in the video, and I didn't realize it until I went to hook this one up, is when I showed testing the previous strip of LEDs, I'd actually had the V- and the V+ being used rather than the V+ and the common. So that's something unique about this particular power supply. It was a salvaged power supply, so it's got both voltage negative and voltage positive at 12 volts common, and a plus 5 volts because it came out of a piece of equipment that was scrapped. So this isn't its original use. So just so that you're aware, you want to go with your negative to the common in these connection in these particular situations. Now, just a little bit more about this power supply. So I've got a an old kettle cord. So nice heavy three wire cord, and salvaged the switch out of it. And as you see, the other LED strip is lighting up, so everything was soldered appropriately. Now I'm going to take you over to my other power supply that I'm going to use, and just so you can see the differences between them, because this was purchased specifically for this task, where it's got 2 voltage negative and 2 voltage positive ports on it. So that's one of the differences that you may find when dealing with different purchase power supplies. So I just wanted to point that out so that you learned from my errors. Back in a moment. Okay, so I've gone ahead and using the swab, whatever it's called, with 99% IPA, I've gone and ran it through both tracks, which I had actually previously cleaned before using paper towel and rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. So there was still a lot of gunk left in that channel, which would have potentially caused the adhesive to not stick to the steel when I actually seat the LED strip. So that's good. And what I'm also going to do is use some Kapton tape around where the LED strips end, just to ensure that I don't have any contact with the J channel as well. So progress is being made, and we'll be back in a moment. So more than a few minutes later, and everything is complete. So let's take a look. So here, I'll give you a shot down the J channel with the LEDs in it, starting from the bulkhead. Now it's quite bright going end on, but I knew that was going to be the way it is. But as far as at eye level, to me, this is the change in the layout. Now, so that's 8 inches back, and it's just lighting things up right to the edge of the layout, pretty much literally. There's a good example of the overcut of the light coming down the leg there. So 8 inches was pretty good guess, and you can see the delineation line of the light right there, which is probably in around 18 inches, I would guess. I don't have a ruler on this side to actually measure it, but that worked out quite well. And I've got the other light all wired in, so it's no longer using jumper leads. And even standing here and looking up, you can just barely see the LED bulbs, but as soon as you're about a step back, all you're seeing is the reflection of the LEDs on the J channel, but you're not actually seeing the light themselves. Camera's having a hard time swamping in with the other light in the background there as well. So, but that lights up that section of the logging run quite nicely. Little shadowed over there, but as far as this section goes, it's lit up quite well. Now I guess I could always take some tin snips and trim back this bit of J channel. Sorry, angles. This bit of J channel right here, and that would kick the light out more that side as well. But as far as it goes, it's I'm liking it, and I've shown that previously, where it really lights up from under that bulkhead. Actually, it makes quite the contrast moving down into this corner with just the ceiling lights. So I don't know, I may end up doing some more LED J channel in the future, just to overlay everything. But here's a look from this side. So it is providing some shadow with the scene block, but for the most part it's lighting up yeah, probably about 16 of the 24 inches it's lighting for where its placement is. So now I can always tweak the J channel so that it's more tilted in towards where I've got the camera, and that will skew the light a little more to this side rather than that side. But overall, I'm quite satisfied with a little bit of work. So there's the wiring all buttoned up, and the wiring from this side traveling around the bulkhead and tying into the panel, and then both leads go in through the notch that I cut to tie into the LED strips. So that's as complicated as it is. The other thing I've got going on is that used to be a lamp fixture. So I put in the plate and the 3 prong outlet in its place. So that is actually controlled by a light switch, which that power supply is plugged into. Now the light switch, of course, is buried in behind the backdrop board, masonite. So what I did is I actually took a piece of 1/8 inch rod and bent it, as you see, and if I reach in here and pull down, that shuts everything off. So that's my actuator for the light switch in behind the layout. I just drilled a hole through the flip of the light switch and fed the rod through it. So there's the difference with the light out, as you've seen before. So project complete. Actually 2 projects complete, because wiring that one up was still a pending project waiting for me to deal with the installation of this pardon me, this lighting. So now this will light up this side of the layout, and when I get to do scenery I can actually see what I'm doing. So till the next video, I hope you're able to get down and run some trains or work on your layout in some manner, build a building, weather a freight car or a loco, something dealing with the hobby. So till the next video, bye for now.